Hello class, and welcome to this lesson called Multiples and Least Common Multiple. Okay, so let's learn what multiples are. Let's take the number 2. The multiples of 2, well, the first multiple of 2 would be the number itself. And so think about multiples being numbers that the number that you're thinking about, in this case 2, we want to find some numbers that 2 can multiply, and that's where we get the name multiples. Trying to find numbers that 2 can multiply into. So the first one would be 2, because every number can multiply into itself one time. So the first multiple of 2 would be 2. Next one would be 4, and 6, and 8, and so on and so forth. So we could actually keep listing multiples for a long time, infinitely. Multiples will go on and on and on forever. How about multiples of 6? First one is always the number itself. That's the first number 6 can multiply into is 6. And then we'd have 12, and then 18, and then 24. So if you know your multiplication facts, multiples are going to be very easy. But now let's think about what is least common multiple, or you're going to hear me refer to a lot as LCM. Remember before we found the greatest common factor, and when we broke that down, greatest common factor, it really made sense because it was the greatest or the largest factor that was in common for a set of numbers. And this is sort of the same idea, but at the same time it's different, so make sure you're paying attention. Here we're going to focus on finding the least or smallest multiple that a set of numbers have in common. So how will we do that? Let's start off with 2 and 6, the same numbers that we used to begin with. So what we could do is we could list some multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's really not a for sure time to stop listing multiples. I'm just going to stop there and then see how many multiples I need to list for 6 until I find one that's in common. So multiples of 6, we've got to start with the first one, which is the number itself, 6, and then 12, and then 18, and actually I can already stop because what you should do while you're listing the multiples of the second number, so while I was listing the multiples of 6, each time I put down a multiple, the first one was 6, I should go up and see if that multiple is up here in the multiples of 2. And in this case it was. The very first multiple of 6, which was 6, was also a multiple of 2. There it is right there. So we can also see that they have so in other words, that was the first multiple that they had in common. 2 and 6, the first multiple they had in common was 6. They also have another common multiple we can see right here, 12 they have in common. But ask yourself, is 12 the least common multiple? Remember, we're looking for the least common multiple. So sort of like with factors, remember, we would find that two numbers would have more than one factor in common, but we were always looking for the greatest factor that they had in common, the greatest common factor. But in this case, we're looking for sort of the opposite. We're looking for the least common multiple. So let's talk now about the difference between factors and factors which we had learned about before, and multiples, which we're learning about in this video, because it's really common for people to get the two mixed up, factors and multiples. So I want to try to give you a visual demonstration to help for it to be clear for you what the difference is between factors and multiples. So let's take the number 6 for instance. Let's first list the factors of 6, since that was the first skill that we learned. And I'm going to actually list the factors of 6 going this way backwards instead of listing them out here like we had previously. I'm going to list them to the left. So the first factor of 6, the largest factor of 6 is the number itself. Every number goes into itself. Okay, the next largest factor of 6 would be 3. I'll get rid of this arrow. The next largest factor of 6 would be 2, and then of course 1. So these are the factors of 6. 1, 2, 3, and of course the number 6 itself. Remember, we can make sure we have all of our factors by pairing them up. 2 times 3 is 6, and 1 times 6 is 6. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those so they're not in our way. Alright, next let's think about the multiples of 6. The first multiple of 6 is the number itself. So let's go back and think about that again. The largest factor that a number has is the number itself. And the smallest multiple that a number has is the number itself. So 6 goes into itself, so it's a factor of itself. It's the largest factor out of all of them. The factors of 6, remember, are 1, 2, and 3. And 6 is the very first multiple of 6 because 6 times 1 equals 6. So the number itself is a factor and a multiple of itself. Okay, let's get rid of this. And now let's focus on the multiples of 6. So the first one is the number itself, 6. And the next multiple of 6 would be 12, then 18, then 24. And we really could just keep going on and on forever, so I'm just going to stop there. But hopefully this gives you sort of a visual of what the difference is between factors and multiples. And actually, to make the color coding match up here, I'm going to go over multiples in pink and keep the factors in blue. So here we have multiples. Here we have factors of 6, and then of course the number itself is a factor and a multiple of itself. So to conclude this portion of the video, 1, 2, and 3, and 6 are all of the factors of 6. 6, let me say that again, 1, 2, 3, and 6 are all of the factors of 6. It only has 4 factors. 6, 12, 18, and 24 are the first 4 multiples of 6, and we could keep going on and on and on forever with multiples, but we're just going to stop there for now. So hopefully that clears up what the difference is between factors and multiples. Let's talk about finding the least common multiple. Just for another minute, I want to teach you a shortcut that you might find helpful to be able to find the least common multiple of a set of numbers a little bit faster. So earlier in the video, we found the least common multiple of 2 and 6. And so we listed the multiples of 2, or we listed some multiples of 2. And then we listed some multiples of 6. And then remember, we found the one that they had in common that was the smallest or least, and that was 6. So the LCM of 2 and 6 was 6. But let me show you how you can figure out the least common multiple of a pair of numbers a little bit faster than that. So instead of listing, I'm going to practice this with 4 and 6. But instead of listing a bunch of multiples of 4 and then a bunch of multiples of 6, I'm actually just going to start with the greater number, 6. And if I list the multiples of 6, remember the first multiple is always the number itself. And after I think of the first multiple of 6, I'm going to ask myself, is that a multiple of 4? Is 6 also a multiple of 4? No, it's not, because 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. It never lands on 6. So what's the next multiple of 6? 12. Is 12 a multiple of 4? It is, because 4 times 3 equals 12. So in other words, I just found the first multiple of 6 that is also a multiple of 4. So 12 automatically is my least common multiple, or LCM. So I could have done that the way that I taught you the first time. We could just list some multiples of 4, stop after maybe 4 or 5, list some multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, 24, and then I could go through and look and see which ones they have in common. The first one that they have in common is 12. So you can do it this way, or you can do it this way, where you just list the multiples of the larger number, and the first one that you find that you know is also a multiple of the smaller number, that's automatically going to be the least common multiple. Okay, make sure you check below the video here on Edmodo for your follow-up task. Thank you for your attention, and make sure you have any questions prepared that you have about finding the least common multiple. Thank you.